Alright guys, so this is dividing with I in the denominator. So bad math notation is to have a square root in the bottom, to have an I in the bottom, to have a negative sign in the bottom. So I'm going to show you how to get it out. So this is a monomial, meaning there is no plus or minus sign. So the way we get it out is we just need to make this I into an I squared. I find it the easiest if we multiply by the opposite of the sign in the bottom. So this doesn't have a negative sign out in front, so I'm going to multiply by a negative I value. If you do it to the bottom, you have to do it to the top, just like rationalizing square roots. So the bottom, very simply, you just multiply your I and your negative I, which would make negative I squared. I squared is negative 1, so therefore we're going to have a negative 1 times a negative 4 to get a positive 4. So our outcome on the bottom is a positive number. For the top, we're just going to distribute in our I, or our negative I should say. So we're going to have 2 times negative I, which is going to give us negative 2I. And we're going to have 3I times negative I, which is going to give us negative 3I squared. I squared, again, is not allowed in our answer. So we change our I squared to negative 1. So we'd have negative 3 times negative 1, which would be 3. And then our 2I. One thing, we should still order this as real, then our imaginary part. So I'm just going to reverse the 3. The 3 is positive, so it's going to be positive when I write it out in front. The 2I is negative, so there's going to be a minus in front. And then our 4 is underneath. If you forgot and did just an I, what's going to happen if you do that is there would be a negative sign in the bottom. These signs would be switched and you would have to reduce everything by a negative 1. That is why I don't really like that, the way that turns out. Okay, we cannot reduce the 2 and the 4 because they are not all in common with something. So this is our final answer, ignoring the triangle in the middle. Okay, so that is if a monomial is in the bottom. Next, I'm going to show you if a binomial is in the denominator. So let's do that next. So this one, we have a monomial up top, binomial on the bottom. So to get rid of the I this time, if we distributed in an I, we would have the 3 times the I, which would still leave us with an I. So we have to make something that's called a complex conjugate. So the way we make it is we look in the denominator, because that's what we want to fix, and we just change the sign in the middle. So everything stays the same, just the signs are opposite. So all of the numbers would stay the same. Okay, so opposite sign in the middle. If we do it to the bottom, we have to do it to the top. So the top is nice and easy. We're just going to distribute in our 2. If it was a binomial, which I'll show you next, we would have to FOIL. But this one is just a monomial, so we'd have 2 times 3, which is 6, and 2 times I, which is 2I. On the bottom, however, we are going to FOIL. I'm going to do it underneath. So we'd have 3 times 3, which would give us 9. 3 times positive I, which would give us 3I. Negative I times 3, which would give us negative 3I. And negative I times I would give us negative I squared. Again, I squared is not allowed. We got to switch it to a negative 1. So we'd have 9. This goes to 0I, which is just 0. And then minus a negative 1, making it plus, which gives us a 10 in the bottom. So I'm just going to put that 10 here. Now, since these are all divisible by 2, we need to reduce by 2. So sometimes I'll write it out here, sometimes I'll just put a 2 in the middle, and I know that I'm reducing by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is going to give us a 3. 2I divided by 2 is going to give us an I. 10 divided by 2 is going to give us a 5, which would be our final answer. Okay, so that is one with a monomial on the top, binomial on the denominator. And then last, we have 2 binomials. So we do the same start. So this is a plus sign this time, so we're going to switch the sign to a minus sign. So numbers stay the same order, everything. We just switch the sign in the middle. So what we do to the top, or what we do the bottom, we have to do the top. Putting everything in parentheses, we're going to have to FOIL 2 times. So the top, we're going to have 3 times 2, which gives us 6. 3 times negative 4i, which gives us negative 12i. Negative I times 2, which is negative 2i. And negative I times negative 4i, which is positive 4i squared. Underneath, we're going to have 2 times 2, which gives us 4. 2 times negative 4i, which gives us negative 8i. 4i times 2, which gives us positive 8i. 4i times negative 4i, which gives us negative 16i squared. I squareds again are going to turn into negative 1. I'm running out of room, so I'm going to come down here. So we have 6. Negative 12i minus 2i is negative 14i. Then we had 4 times negative 1, which is going to give us negative 4. Over 4. Negative 8i and 8i make 0. Minus 16 times negative 1, which is just going to give us a 16. So I'm just going to erase that and put plus 16. Save me a step. 6 minus 4 is 2. Minus 14i. And then 4 plus 16 is 20. Again, the last step is going to see if we have something in common. In this case, it's a 2. So 2 divided by 2 leaves us with a 1. Negative 14i divided by 2 leaves us with 7i. 20 divided by 2 leaves us with a 10. So our answers are always, regardless of how they start, are pretty much always going to look like a number on the bottom, and then either a number or a binomial on the top.